Hello and welcome to another chess guess video. So, who was the last knight of the King's Gambit? And also, can you find the winning moves played by this last knight of the King's Gambit? All right, the answer to the question of who he was, well, if you see the name at the bottom here with the white pieces, Rudolf Spielmann, who was given that name, that nickname, because he was a combinational attacking player. He liked to sacrifice and he liked to play the King's Gambit often. And that is the opening that we'll see here. So try and guess the moves. I've covered everything up and hidden the computer evaluation or turned that off so you can't see it. Let's begin here. Spielmann. This was the latest game I could find from him from 1940. I don't know if he had other games somewhere after that, but in this database, this was the last one I could find. He was from Austria. And here we have e4. So an attacking player usually likes to play e4 because the positions open up a little bit. So now you can guess Spielmann's moves with the white pieces or his opponent, but you'll probably learn a lot from the moves that Spielmann plays here. And this is a great way to improve your chess, trying to guess what moves the masters play. All right, we have e4, e5, and now if you're familiar with the King's Gambit, you'll know what is played here. So f4, this is the King's Gambit, where you tempt your opponent to capture that pawn, that flank pawn, knocking out one, well, not knocking it out, but pulling away one of these valuable central pawns off to the side, and that could let you bring your pawn forward and have two valuable central pawns. So the gambit is declined, and this is the Falkbeer counter gambit. So instead of accepting the gambit, which can be played, there are ways to decline the gambit. You could play d6 maybe, but d5 is a counter gambit because now white could capture the e5 pawn. White could go after, this pawn. Let's see what happens. What do you think Spielmann will do here? He captures the d5 pawn. So now we have black pushing forward. So this is the King's Gambit declined, Falkbeer accepted, Staunton line. So what does Spielmann do next? He attacks this pawn again. So instead of capturing and helping white develop a piece, black instead develops one of his pieces and keeps an eye on this pawn here. So the game continues with queen developing and lining up on the opponent's king. So already, there's some subtle, well, I don't know how subtle they are, but there's some threats building. The game continues with the queen capturing the first inaccuracy of the game by Spielmann's opponent waddling here. And the game continues with knight developing with the attack. So hopefully you found that move whenever you can attack and gain some tempo on your opponent by chasing, developing one of your pieces, attacking, and your opponent has to run. It gives you time to develop something else. So instead of running, we have a pin. So now the pin is broken. Capture, and what do you think will be played here? You have to keep the game even, you have a couple options. Bishop captures, which is best because now that bishop is on kind of an open diagonal, aimed up through the center and towards black's king side. We have A developing move, bringing the bishop out, attacking the queen here. That is ignored. Hopefully you found that move, but that's okay if you didn't. You leave your queen under attack, but counterattack their queen. So the queen drops back, lining up as well on queen and king. And now queen to c4. So this is an inaccuracy. What could have been played? Maybe a knight developing move might have been okay. I guess we'll find out what Spielman has building up here. Now, this is just a mistake. So the first mistake of the game, if we look at material, Spielman is ahead by, what, +1 pawn. And that's probably why his opponent didn't just trade queens, because if he would have captured, it would have helped the opponent develop. So let's see what happens next. We have the bishop developing, helping support this pawn in the center. And now the game continues with knight developing. So both sides are rushing to get their pieces out. And the position is kind of open. And so when it is open like this, oftentimes you want to just develop as quickly as possible. And also, by developing that knight, black has the option now to castle king side or queen side. So knight develops. And here we have castling to the queen side. A mistake, according to the computer. Now, I don't have the computer evaluation on to see what's going on. Maybe the computer preferred king side castling. Let's find out. So Spielberg. We're not watching movies here. Okay, Rudolf Spielman, he castles to the king side. Now this is pretty important. When you have opposite side castling like this, both sides should rush to throw their pawns forward using what's called a pawn storm. And you just blast your pawns forward trying to knock away at the king side. And you can do that because your pawns are safe over here guarding your king, and these can rush forward, and likewise for white as well. So we have a retreat and an attack on the queen. So the obvious move would be to take care of this attack on the queen. So the queen steps to the side, keeping an eye on this pawn, but it's protected by the knight at the moment. So the game continues with queen to c5 check. So what should Spielman do at this point? Now remember, when you're in check, you have one of three options or less. Capture the attacker, block the attacker, or run from the attacker. So there's no way to capture the queen. So that leaves blocking or running. Blocking is possible. Otherwise, the king will have to run to h1. And that is what Spielman does. The computer says that that is the best move. So the game continues with knight jumping forward, attacking this pawn, which is defended by the king and the knight. So what does Spielman do at this point? We have a bishop retreat here. Now, often these moves are overlooked, a retreating move. That does prevent the knight from jumping in here, checking the king, and if the king would go on to g1, that could be a problem with discovered check attacks. So rook and bishop are both guarding this f2 square. All right, black pushes forward with the pawn, maybe threatening to start a pawn storm by pushing his pawn up to g5. So Spielman gets his pawn storm in first, pressing forward, attacking the queen, and the game continues with the queen sidestepping over, lining up on the opponent's king, usually a good strategy, lining up on a more valuable piece. So at the moment, Spielman is he's covering h2 with the king and the knight, so he's okay at the moment. But what should Spielman do? What does he choose to do here? We have the bishop jumping up, adding additional protection to that pawn, but also maybe lining up towards this c7 pawn for future threats. King moves over, and this is a move you'll see often in games where the kings have castled queenside. A lot of times it's recommended that you move the king onto the b file. It does help protect this pawn. Now the knight is free to move and not worry about this queen capturing the pawn and working its way in here to attack the king. So the downside, I guess, is this pawn at some point could push forward, attacking and opening up a diagonal here directly aimed at the king now. So first we have a pawn push attacking this knight. Knight retreats. And now what should Spielman do? See if you can figure it out. All right. He does in fact push that pawn forward, attacking the bishop, but giving his bishop a nice open line towards the king. So bishop retreats. And how does Spielman continue here? Rook lining up on the king. So we have a rook lining up on the king, a bishop lining up. We have a queen close by. So I don't know. It's slowly building here. I think we're going to have some fireworks unleashed against the black player's king here. Knight drops back to help defend. And what does Spielman do now? He brings another piece closer towards the queen side where black's king is hiding. All right. This move, it's not awarded a inaccuracy or a mistake, but now there is a possibility of maybe capturing the rook, but Spielman may not want to do that because this bishop is doing a good job defending against queen and knight piled up here. So we have this, a brilliant move. I'll show that again. The knight sacrifices itself. Now, will his opponent capture? No. He declines to capture and open up the position. Instead, the king slides over to the A file. Queen and knight are attacking here. Queen and knight are attacking here. So interesting display on opposite sides here of queen and knight attacks. All right, the final moves of the game. Spielman presses forward, trying to knock this pawn out of the way, have room for the rooks on the half-open file. So we have capture of the knight. And apparently this is a missed opportunity. There was, obviously something better that could have been played. But, instead of looking around for that, let's see what Spielman does. He sacrifices his queen. All right, so I don't know if you would have found that move or not. If you did, outstanding job. After, oh, avoiding the capture. The capture is avoided. Now, because you're trying to guess the moves, I'm not going to dig too deep into what could have happened. After we show the final few moves that are left, I'll go back and do a game review, and then I might highlight or take a deeper look at some of the possibilities, especially why they didn't take that queen. But for now, we have a capture. The rook attacks the queen. Queen retreats. And now the knight jumps forward, attacking the rook here. Rook sacrificing the exchange for that knight. But instead, there's a counterattack. Capture. Bishop drops back here, preventing the queen from attacking that rook and threatening a mate. But we have another rook sacrifice there. King captures. Now what will Spielman do? Check. And this is where his opponent resigned. Now, why did he resign? What are the possibilities here? You have a bishop covering that diagonal. The bishop is guarding the queen. The queen is cutting off these squares. So the only thing possible is for the king to run into the corner. But then there would be a mate after queen captures rook, delivering a mate to the king in the corner. So king runs and queen mates with queen captures on c8. All right, quick review here on, I don't know how much my image is covering up, quite a bit. Looks like you can't see much at all. So let me move my image. I'll throw it in the center of the board or right over here for a second, and then you can take a quick look at this. It looks like Rudolf Spielman got an edge in the opening and just kept building on it until he got a big win there at the end. He played with 92.2% accuracy versus 73.7% by his opponent. It looks like two brilliant moves by Spielman, two great moves. And as far as the bad moves, he had only 3 inaccuracies and 1 miss, but his opponent had 5 inaccuracies, 2 mistakes, and 1 miss. Then it looks like Spielman played at a 2450 level versus 2100 by his opponent. 100% opening accuracy in that King's Gambit, which it was like a crazy Falk beer counter gambit variation. 96.4% accuracy for his opponent, but 89.9% accuracy in the middle game for Spielman and 76.5% for his opponent. One thing I might go back and look at here is, why was that queen not captured earlier? So let me move my image back here and we'll take a look at that. Quick look. And, feel free to leave comments and definitely let me know if there are games that you would like to see by other famous players in the future that you would like to guess their moves in this chess guess series. Let's see here. So if we go back a little bit, where's that queen move by Spielman? All right, we'll go back to here. Now, the queen was getting closer to the queen, black's queen side up here. Let me work my way up to that position. So the knight is under attack. That knight retreats. Now the bishop is under attack, and the bishop retreats. So the rook that was not doing much steps in behind this pawn that is pushed up the board. And the brilliant move here, that knight was not captured. Now, if the knight were captured like this, well, then you have capture, knight blocks, but then what? It looks like the best thing to do would be to take the rook first. Then if they capture, you have to worry about this mate threat, but you can go here. And, you know, there's a threat like this of moving up and going for a mate. So that's a possible threat. But, you know, before I dig too deep into that, let's see what happened next. The king instead, Spielman's opponent found the best move, running into the corner. The pawn pushes forward. Now, of course, you can't capture that way because of the pin by that queen. You could possibly go this way. But then you have to watch out because this rook is under attack. So a lot going on here. But I want to get to the point where the queen captures that rook right here. And that queen was not captured. So let's see what happens if that queen were to be captured. So it looks like it's almost about the same. No. Let's see what would happen here. You have this. B7. King would be forced to go to B8. And now bishop captures with check. King is forced to take. But then the pawn would promote here. So the king would have to run up to D8. And now, well, one possibility is bringing the rook up on the 7th rank. You know, and that's not looking too good. H3, though, is recommended by the computer to prevent any future mate threats. At the moment, the queen is covering that. So, you know, I just thought that was kind of an interesting attacking game. Perhaps in the future I'll do more Rudolf Spielman games. You should check out some of his games yourself if you're not familiar with Rudolf Spielman and you're an attacking player. Excuse me, you could learn some from his games. So feel free to leave comments, like and subscribe to support the channel. Thank you for watching and have a super chess day.